What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. For years, people have been convinced that Putin's war would drag Russia into ruin, but so far, it looks like that the invasion actually makes things better. No, not for the nation as a whole, but for the elite, the cronies, the bureaucrats, yeah, for sure. But I'm mostly talking about the forgotten millions, the abandoned provinces, the rusting factories, the people who for decades were told that, well, guys, you are on your own. Because suddenly, these people are now driving expensive Chinese SUVs, ordering steaks in restaurants, and getting mortgages they once thought were only for Moscow people. All thanks to the war. For the first time in their lives, war brought them more than a coffin. It brought them cash, recognition, and stable jobs. Obviously stable, quote-unquote. Seems like there is no reason for Putin to then end it, right? Until you realize that where there are positive things about the invasion, inevitably there should be horrible consequences. The inflation, the interest rates, the overall economic health, and just in general, the economy that is on military tracks are all indicators of a collapse just waiting to happen. Putin's economy is literally living on borrowed time right now. The best analogy here is a terminally ill patient who has been told to enjoy his life to the fullest while he still can. And that is precisely what is happening right now in Russia. That is precisely what Putin is doing and why it seems like he found a solution to the unshakable regime. He just flushes every corner and clogs every hole with cash. It will cost him billions of dollars, trillions of rubles to maintain the alleged stability. And his main bet is that he will simply not be here to face the consequences. Because he's a mortal human being. So today, let's talk about Russia's military economy, the central bank of Russia, what it seems giving up on the inflation control, and the most likely consequences for Russia as a country in potentially not so distant future. By the way, guys, on Monday we had an interview with operator Starsky, and for some reason the algorithms of YouTube did not push the video to many of you. In case you missed the 5th episode of Thank God It's Monday podcast, please go ahead and check it after watching this video. Operator Starsky talks about his own frontline experience and him personally participating in what is my opinion, in the most important battle of Ukraine, the battle for Hostomel airport. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Well, because apparently YouTube for some reason does it from time to time. And well, this is the most easy, the basic way to fix it. Thank you, and now let's get back to the video. Ivanova. Once Russia's linen capital, now known as a textbook economic corpse. The kind of place you drive around, not through the city center. For over a century, Ivanova's tailoring industry served the empire, the Soviets, and even the early post-Soviet years. But then, the Iron Curtain has fallen, and came Turkish imports and the market boom of the 90s. So goodbye flax fields and hello synthetic stuff from Istanbul. Overnight, an entire industry collapsed. Imagine Detroit minus the Moto Town nostalgia. Nothing was left. No new tech hubs, no mining, no border trade, just endless joblessness and desperation. The entire city that was built around one single industry has ceased to exist, but not its residents. Then came the war, and just like that, Ivanova's tailors were dragged out of the industrial grave. Suddenly, the army needed uniforms, and not just the parade costumes. We're talking about thermal underwear, body armor, camouflage, drone nets, everything. Ivanova became irrelevant once again. Apprentice tailors surviving on 15 to 20,000 rubles now make 50,000 rubles a month. Not much according to Western standards, just over $620 per month, but still 3 times more what they used to make. And that's right, just simple tailors. Not AI engineers, not blockchain wizards, old school thread and needle tailors. For the first time since the USSR collapsed, Ivanova found purpose. Factories that were abandoned are roaring back to life. You hear once again the hum of sewing machines instead of funeral silence. But here's the catch. This boom is entirely artificial. If the war ended tomorrow, these tailors go right back to poverty. Their skills do not translate to a peacetime economy. Their success is pegged to misery, blood, and endless military contracts. There is no simply long-term growth, no transformation, just a temporary pulse in a dead region. Kids might now dream of becoming even tailors, not because it's prestigious, but because it pays. It pays a lot. Well, that's how deep the delusions run. And let's be honest, this is a payday wrapped in camouflage. There is no future in making underwear for conscripts. I mean, we can all agree on that, right? The next time the Kremlin says we have reached our objectives and the money dries up, well, those factories will inevitably too. Ivanova is not on the brink of an industrial renaissance. It is sitting on a time bomb of economic relevance. And obviously, tailoring is not the only artificially resurrected industry. Hardware and military machines producing factories are also among the most attractive job sites at this very moment. However, is this phenomena any different from what we are seeing in Ivanova? Let's try to answer this question right now. Let's head to Nizhny Tagil, where two factories stood as metaphors for Russia's economic schizophrenia. One, a privately owned steelworks that managed crises with grace. The other, Uralvagonzavod, a chaotic state-run tank producer plagued by layoffs and jokes about engineers needing Nobel Prize for, 20,000 ruble paychecks. Pre-war, nobody wanted to work there unless desperations hit. The cafeteria served cold soup, kinda just basically water with salt, the paychecks were late, and the atmosphere was one of dying Soviet pride. But fast forward to today, the tank factories are drowning in job offers. They are desperate for workers. A simple machine operator, 130,000 rubles a month. Even a cafeteria dishwasher, 45,000. That's even more money than a local engineer with a PhD in engineering made in 2021. And no, it is not primarily at least inflation. These are war premiums. Factories that once begged workers to stay now pay ransoms to keep them. The same arms plants that were mocked on social media are now the backbone of entire regional economies. Villages once emptied out by migration are seeing returnees. Why? Because for the first time in years, the village boys have a reason to finally come back. And the ripple effect is also very massive. When someone in the never-heard-before town earns triple the previous average wage, everything changes. Restaurants open, people buy cars, so repair shops multiply as well. People start living, not just surviving. But let's not get too sentimental, this prosperity is built on blood. These factories do not make teddy bears by no means. They make tanks and rifles that go straight to the front lines. Every ruble earned is a ruble extracted from somebody else's suffering. Every bolt tightened is a future battlefield casualty. Before the war, Uralvagonzavod could not attract a college graduate if it offered free housing and vodka with every paycheck. And now, engineering students are lining up. And it is not loyalty, it is desperation. The alternative, because, is a gig work in Moscow or debt. This is not career development, it is survival wrapped in steel planting. And the money they offer are just too good to pass for someone who only has food for the next 2 breakfasts left in the fridge. Then, there are also entirely new billion-dollar industries, which appeared in the last 3 years, such as, for example, military drones production and assembly companies. Even though they shovel cash right now, the future perspectives for them are even worse once the war is over. Russia will always need some kind of tailoring, some kind of brick producing. Well, the tanks will always be even needed to store them just in case and to drive them around once per year during Victory Day Parade. But what about military drones? We personally do not see the use of them during the times of peace. So let's talk about this new industry in our next chapter. Now let's talk about the new cool kid on the block. Drones. The Insider's investigation reveals that Russia's drone industry exploded into $1 billion leviathan overnight. From forgotten hangars to tech startups, assault drones are now the hottest commodity. And with them comes a whole new class of war entrepreneurs. Engineers, mechanics, programmers, even janitors, everyone has a place in the chain. The war turned garages into workshops and laid off web developers into drone software engineers. And you better believe, well, they are making a huge bank. 1 million ruble salaries, around $12,500 per month, are no longer in fantasy. They are the new normal for elite specialists. Compare it to $200 per month for a pre-war engineering professional with a minimum 5 years experience and a PhD in physics, and you will immediately see what I mean. This is not an economic miracle, it is a flood of money aimed directly at the war machine. It is the digital version of Stalin's 5-year plans, except this time the output is not mere tractors. It is the death from above. Each drone is worth tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes more, and each successful test flight is a future casualty mapped out. But once again, the logic is the same. Prosperity as long as people are dying. These engineers are not building for export, they are not making life easier or the world better. They are leeching onto a blood-soaked supply chain that needs war to survive. One day when the drone contracts dry up, these factories will too. And the people who tested wealth for the first time in their lives will look back at this era as the golden years. Not because it was moral or anything like this, but because it simply paid the bills and paid it very well. And here is the grotesque twist. This industry needs more than just soldiers. It needs narratives. It needs TV segments about heroic drone operators. It needs patriotic hashtags. It needs to feed a national fantasy. Because once people stop believing in the war, they stop buying the drones. And when that happens, the jobs vanish like morning fog. And trust me, sooner or later, it will happen. This is where it gets truly horrifying for the future of Russia. You see, when the war finally ends, and it will, because even Putin is mortal, Russia will be split. One group will remember death, mutilation, lost friends, and a senseless war that just simply stole their futures. The other, they'll remember steak dinners, mortgages, SUVs, and that time they finally went on vacation to Turkey. These people did not kill anyone, at least not directly. They did not start the war, but they benefited. And they will never forget it. Because for them, war meant wealth. And peace? Well, peace means getting fired, losing the car, defaulting on the mortgage, and going on vacation to your summer dacha, and not on all-inclusive resort in Antalya. The war will not just leave corpses on Ukrainian soil, it will leave a living political legacy inside Russia, a new class of voters who genuinely believe, that Russia was better off during war times. Try running a campaign, for example in 2035, talking about demilitarization and peace, assuming the war continues that long. Try explaining to someone in Ivanova why the drone factory should shut down. Try telling a Nizhny Novgorod welder that his tank assembly line is morally wrong. You will be laughed out of the room, to say the least. Or worse, you will lose elections to Neo-Putinist party, the one that promises to bring back the good old days of shelling, soldiering and 7-figure salaries. This is not science fiction, this is political physics. Every regime leaves a legacy. And Putin's legacy will not just be censorship or invasion. It will be millions of people who got a taste of middle-class life thanks to war. And no opposition manifesto, no liberal think piece, no slick social media campaign will ever change their minds, at least for their generation. Because they lived it, they made money from it, and they will want it back. There will be entire towns that look back and call these war years the good times. The irony of ironies, right? Well, the tailors, the welders, the drone operators, they will not care about democracy or human rights if it means giving up their second car. They will call for a return, a revival, a new leader who promises not peace, but a conflict without a bonus, with a bonus, Precisely all the way until that moment when everything comes crashing down at them all at once. High salaries means high inflation, high government spending means higher deficits. Military production is not something that fills the treasury, it only empties it, just so the country will not lose. But it doesn't even matter if Russia wins or loses, because the end of war itself is the trigger to the end of the military economy. And then everything goes south at the same time and very fast. Because when it rains, it pours. Misfortunes never come alone, and there is always calm before the storm. And when people got a taste of good life, it will be humiliatingly impossible for them to go back. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to check the 5th episode of Thank God It's Monday podcast. It's already uploaded to my YouTube channel. We speak with Operator Starsky. As always, if you want to support my work, the links down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway.